Hello, everybody. Welcome to the video today. Welcome. Of course, we're going to be talking about Jason Anderson and Ken Roczen and how they are still considered race winners to this point, and I'll really get in depth with all that and with each individual riders and their struggles and their strengths and their speed and their bikes and whatnot. Make sure to consider leaving a like and make sure to consider subscribing after you watch the video, because if you do it beforehand, you don't even know what you're liking and subscribing to. So let's get right into it. We'll break down Jason Anderson first and kind of talk about the way that he's kind of sabotaged his own season, how fast he's been, especially in this last race, and just kind of talk about, Jason Anderson as a whole and how he kind of varies as a championship contender to this point. And I personally think that Jason Anderson still has race winner type potential to win the championship. Has gone down way, way, way too far for me to consider him a title contender. To me, it doesn't really fit. The title doesn't really fit yet. Maybe if he wins 5 in a row, sure, but the reality of that happening is so small with the stacked field that we have. We don't even have a timetable on Malcolm Stewart's return, but that is someone I would have very much liked to talk about. But unfortunately, injuries continue to hold him back and his career and whatnot at the peak of his career right now. So let's go ahead and jump into Jason Anderson sabotaging and how that all happens. I think that Jason Anderson has sabotaged his own. I don't really think he's been sabotaged. I think that he has really, really hurt himself in the first 2 or 3 races of this series and whatnot. And then we just had this Triple Crown where he looked probably the best we've seen him. And he qualified first in practice. He won the main event number 2. He looked really good. And if he were to do that this whole time, he'd still be 3rd or 4th in points, in my opinion. But unfortunately, he had those rocky starts, and it's not someone else forcing it upon him. And those rocky starts really came from Jason Anderson in those first 3 or 4 rounds where he just wasn't all there in the head, in my opinion. He wasn't really thinking long term. He let his emotions get into his head, or he was just riding way too loose and cared a little bit too much about taking other people with him, or vice versa. I don't know. It's definitely tough to map out what he was thinking. He's completely sane. I'm not saying this guy's prime Bam Bam where he doesn't see anything wrong with what he's doing. He knows that he's put himself in a tough spot, and it's hard to be Jason Anderson in that instance, because you never know what could really come of it when you start rough and then maybe you catch a groove. That makes it that much more painful. It's because when you're losing consistently, that's still very frustrating. But if you put yourself in a bad position early and then you catch stride in the middle and you finish late, that can be huge because of that first start where you butchered your chances. That is what's going to come back to haunt you. It's not going to be, you're not going to be looking at the peak of the season saying, holy crap, that was awesome. You're going to be looking at the start of the season where you're saying why and how and like what I can do to prevent that from happening again. But I just don't think Jason Anderson was really thinking long term with those first 4 races, because I mean, he's found himself on probation now. He is not off the hinges, but it's just so tough to look at his situation and say someone else is at fault. I think that it's completely Jason Anderson. I think he needs to work on it. I think that he definitely needs to I guess work towards the past, or work towards the end of the season. I think he really needs to put in the extra work. I think if he's going to have any chance at all, he needs to start winning. He needs to start winning now. He did really well last year in Daytona. We're going to be able to see what he can do this year in Daytona. It should be fun, and it should be a weird process to look at. But Jason Anderson, in my opinion, has been fast enough these last couple of weeks to get there. And especially this past week where he won one of the main events and then went down on the start. It's so tough to really look at him and say that he's not a race winner and a contender for, this last half of the season to maybe even come out and win win 5 of these next, whatever, how many races we have. What is it, 9 now? So I'm really excited for his future, but I think that we should really start getting going and talking about Roczen and his late race struggles, his bike, and just what he's done through time. I think Ken Roczen is still an amazing rider. I think of him as one of those 30-year-old riders. He's still 28. He needs to kind of get more comfortable on the bike. I don't think he needs to do more testing. I think that he needs to how do you say this? He needs to flow. He needs to have a little bit more fun. It looks like he's almost pushing late in those races. He's pushing the bike through those ruts. He's pushing those bike through those lines. He's in A1. He looked pretty good until late race when he got super choppy, and then he kind of fell off the pace a little bit. But he looks tremendous early. He always had those first lap speeds from him are those that you kind of hold on to, and you still think that he has potential every single year of these last 3 or 4, where he's just come out and his first lap speed is one of the best that we've ever seen. And then he kind of falls off towards late, and I think that's only amplified with this Suzuki and this bike that he's unfamiliar with, and the 2015 technology that consists in these bikes. And I don't think that you can really tell when Roczen's gonna win. I don't think that he's one of those, but he did qualify second this past weekend in that whole main event. He was able to stay with Eli Tomac. He was able to stay within 2 seconds of him. Sorry, I got a little hair there. He was able to stay within 2 seconds of Eli Tomac for basically that whole entire race. And I think that speaks volume to the potential he has to bring come the second half of the season. I think that he really has a chance to win one via the right situation, given the right spots, given the right people going in the wrong direction. So it's going to be tough to rank these riders as the season goes on. Because it's a tough position that some of these guys are put in. Like Roczen, we saw in that main event one. If he was in that situation all the time, he'd be my 3rd or 4th best rider there. If he had a start and some speed and a clean track and only a 10-minute main event every race, he'd be not unstoppable, but he would at least have the championship by now. Goodness gracious, all these hairs. Yeah, it's tough to look at guys like Roczen and Jason and completely say they're completely ruled out. I don't think you can say that at all. I don't think that that's fair to these guys at all to say that they are out of the loop. I think that they are both still winners. I think that they are both still tremendous talents. I think that they are great riders. I think they are awesome people. Had the honor of meeting Anderson a couple of times, and just a nice guy in general. So, I don't know. It's fun to be curious what these guys are going to be able to do in this last half of the season. And I think that Jason has a little bit more of that top end speed and endurance more than Roczen. I think that Anderson's probably just a little bit more time on the bike. I think that he's just a little bit more comfortable in the lead situations to this point. But when Roczen gets up into second and becomes the attacker, I think that's when things will really start to snap for him. And hopefully that can happen somewhat soon for him. And that will conclude the video. Make sure to consider leaving a like and consider subscribing as well. Having fun with what I do on this channel for sure. And I can't wait to post more for you guys. And just can't wait for that next video. If you guys have any video ideas for me, make sure to leave them down in the comments. I'll be happy to cover virtually anything AMA Supercross related to this point. Maybe even predictions for the motocross season would be fun, or Daytona predictions tomorrow, or my top 10s, whatever it may be. I'll be back with them. Make sure to, yeah, I guess enjoy the rest of your day or something. I don't know. See you guys next time.